Hello, my name is Dustin Atwood. I'm a master certified automotive technician. I've been doing it professionally for a little over 20 years. My last podcast that we did, I kind of talked about who I am and where I've come from and why it even matters that I know anything about the automotive field. So if you're interested in that, please look that up. What I want to talk about now is some ongoing training, kind of what it matters and why it matters to me personally, and then A1 Custom Car Care, which is who I work for. And I've been with A1 for the lion's share of my time. I have worked at a couple other shops, but I've been here over 20 years. And I had 2 years of formal automotive training before that at Monette, Missouri in the Southwest Area Career Center is what it was called back then. I believe it's called Scott Tech at this point. So the ongoing training part of it is really, really important. I've been master certified not only in automotive, but medium and heavy duty truck as well. And I've continued my education. Out of everybody within this company, I've had as much, if not more, technical, sales, communication training, leadership training as anybody that we have within our company. And I have some people that have taken some very extensive training and have even moved on into the training sector, as well. So what I wanted to talk about today is this is my vision bag. So this was badge, I'm sorry. This was Vision 2025. And what I want to go over is my list of classes that I attended, and it was a 4-day training event. It was more than just me. We took several of our other technicians. And I feel like it's important to kind of share that with everybody out there, that the technology on your vehicle, unless you have not had a new vehicle in the last 20 years especially, the technology is very much changing extremely rapidly. Now, what does that mean to you and me as a professional technician that's been working on cars for a few decades? Well, it means I better keep up on the new technology that's out there, even some of the old technologies out there, because those mechanics or technicians that were able to fix your car, they're retiring at a very accelerated rate. So it's no secret that the baby boomers have dominated pretty much all the workforces out there, including the skilled trades, for the majority of my life. So I'm 40 years old. I'm going to be 41 this year. And I've been able to work with some of the absolute best skilled tradesmen in the business. And I'm very, very fortunate for that. But at this point, as I kind of think about it, of all the folks that I started with, we have 2 of them left. Now, both of them have been with the company and in the industry 35 years probably, and 40 years coming up very quickly. But other than that, I am the most tenured person within the mechanic side of our company. Now, that's not just to A1 Custom Car Care. That is across businesses, trades in general. You look at the plumbing trade, you look at the heavy equipment operating trade, electrician, fill in the blank with the medical field. Whatever the skill set is that you're looking for, I'm sure I'm not the only one that has had a hard time hiring people to provide some of those services. And it's getting to where that industry or the pool of skilled labor is getting much, much smaller. And there's not as many people stepping up to fill those positions. So what that means, the people that are doing it, you're going to have to really be versatile in knowledge. And when you're seeking out service, if you have a good service center within the automotive space, you probably need to stay with it. But what I'm seeing is people are bouncing around from place to place, whether it's the dealership, whether it's a large chain repair facility, or it's a moderate to medium facility like we have. Now we have 3 A1 Custom Car Cares here in Missouri, and then I consult with a couple of down in Arkansas. So what I see in the industry and really what I've been preparing for essentially is now. I've been seeing this industry basically come up to this pinch point for a decade or longer at this point. And A1 Custom has made sure to reinvest in our talent, provide a good workspace that high talent wants to work at. And then we have brought on new, younger people. And that's really what probably my biggest role is now, is bringing those skills or teaching those skills that I was very fortunate to learn before we saw a lot of those expert guys retire. Now, with that being said, I'm not quite as young as I once was, so it's really important to me to find and recruit the right clay, if you will, and be able to pass that on. So when you come into any of our locations here in Southwest Missouri, you can get your vehicle taken care of. Now, that is getting more difficult, which is what I wanted to talk about today. So this is my badge. I think I had probably alluded to earlier, Vision 2025. We're very thankful it's held in Kansas City, Missouri. It's been going on for probably close to 30 years, maybe a little bit longer. I bet I've been going on and off the last 15 to 20 years. And so I'll just give you a rundown here. I went up Wednesday night after work. I took another one of my head technicians with me, and then we had some more come up Friday evening, or let them out of work a little bit early so they could attend Saturday and Sunday classes. But I was there 4 days. Like I said, this is probably the premier event here in the United States. I know there are some other events out there, but this is a big one, and it's centrally located, and I happen to be a little over 3 hours from this event. So Thursday morning I got up, I went to mastering the navigation of the Alltel scan tool. Now, anybody can see here, this side, I'm a big Snap-on guy. And why in the world would I have multiple pieces of equipment? And at this point, we have several different pieces of diagnostic equipment. Just bear with me just a second. I want to talk about why that matters to you. So Snap-on does a lot of diagnostic equipment. I've been a big Snap-on diagnostic user for years, and I will be for many years to come. But what's happening in the automotive field and space is the technology is coming so fast that maybe Alltel gets ahead of Snap-on in an area or a platform of vehicle. Maybe Snap-on gets ahead of Launch in an area. Maybe Launch is a premier area for some of the relearns and different things that these late model vehicles need, as well as they continue updating some of the older platforms. So even if you're driving a vehicle, say 10 years old, we pay a monthly subscription or a yearly subscription, depending on which platform we're talking about, that costs the shop money or costs the technician money, depending on who owns the piece of equipment. At A1, thankfully, the shop does and takes care of that. That's one of the reasons why I choose to be a part of A1 Custom Car Care, is I don't want to work at a shop that has inferior equipment, let alone diagnostic equipment, because that is the most expensive and the most difficult thing that we do every day is be correct. So that was my morning to make sure that we're getting the most out of the tools, as well as they talked to us about some of the new things that are going to be released in 2026. So really cool features there. My afternoon class was a marketing class. It was targeting and engaging your niche customer. A1 Custom is a really high-end current automotive repair shop. Now, we are not a restoration shop. Now, what that means is occasionally we'll have people come in and have a vehicle that's, say, maybe early to mid-90s into the 80s. At this point in the time that vehicle's been out of production, we're having issues finding parts, having the right skills, and that really has moved into a niche area. About 95 and older, those are restoration jobs. And what that means is, and I grew up, my dad was an auto body guy. He worked at restoration shops. That's a whole different model than what A1 Custom is, which is a 1996 on up, very current, very well tooled, and very educated, which is what we're talking about here today. That's what A1 Custom is. We're not the take the body off the frame, build it from the ground up facility. We're the, hey, I've got this vehicle that pulls my boat. I have this family vehicle. I have this work vehicle. I have this fleet vehicle. I depend on all that, and it's not running right. It's not stopping right. The AC's not working. I got this weird electrical thing. I've been to multiple other places. They can't get it figured out for me. That's who A1 Custom is, and A1 Custom is much more than Dustin Atwood. We have about 35, 38 associates, whether service advisors, managers, technician, maintenance service techs, tire techs. So it takes a whole bunch of us to make sure that we are taking care of your vehicles that you depend on for work or pleasure or family. We want to make sure that we are set up for that, which is that niche customer we're talking about. I did take a leadership class, which was really good. It's building a better team, using accountability and feedback in your shops. Now, that is something I didn't ever think that I would get into when I got into the automotive field. Is didn't really ever think about management. I thought and knew I wanted to be a shop owner, which I've worked on that, and I'm getting fairly close to hopefully that becoming a reality. But I never thought about the people side of things. And I talk about that quite often with all of our folks inside the company, as well as our customers, is yes, we fix cars for a living, but we are in the people business. Whether it's one of our team members that I get to work with every day, which is wonderful, really excited to not be the smartest person in the room. And we have technicians, advisors, and managers that do an amazing job. And a lot of times they're better equipped, whether it's here or with tools, than I am. And I'm extremely well equipped. So I never want to be that smartest person in the room. And we look and recruit and attract that. And some of our best people have come and knocked on the door and said, hey, we'd like to be part of what you've got going on there at A1 Custom. And I want to keep, sharpening those skills. There is a lot of time where you'll see somebody who's an absolute rock star go to work somewhere, and then very quickly they find out that it isn't as, sharp or as basically high caliber as maybe they thought it would be. And that's why I want to keep sharpening those skills, is because not only do you have to earn that trust and get that person to take notice and say, hey, we want to be a part of what you've got going on over there, but I can lose that at any point in time. So I want to keep those skill sets going and going and going. And that was part of my morning training. That's Friday morning. Now, Friday afternoon, I took the ultimate guide to building your marketing strategies. Now, this was a very good class. This was basically how to do that. The thing and marketing is something I didn't think I would ever be in as well, but inevitably I've kind of fell into some of that role. The bottom line is, if you don't know me and what we're about, and when I say me, it's not necessarily Dustin Atwood, it's A1 Custom Car Care, then you're not going to do business with me. And that's really kind of some of the biggest thing. There's a lot of buzzwords out there about brand awareness and, different marketing strategies. But the bottom line is, if you don't know that you've been to, so-and-so shop, or maybe you've tried to fix it yourself, which if you've got the ability to do that, I applaud you. My concern is I get a lot of them that didn't, and it ends up costing them more money in the end, because not only do I have to fix the initial issue, I've got to right whatever happened when the repair didn't go well. But that's kind of the nature of the beast. A1 Custom is in the business of fixing cars, but more importantly, we're in the people business, which is what I alluded to earlier. We just happen to do that through automotive repair. So I got up Saturday morning. Another technician showed up there. Him and I both took a parasitic load diagnostic test, which is a fancy way to say, hey, I shut off my car, I go in the house, I get out the next morning, and my battery's dead. And I see them, where a lot of people think, oh, I need a new battery. And sometimes, or a lot of times, that's accurate. But with the amount of technology that's in these cars, we're seeing it that, there's a whole bunch more that may stay alive or keep awake, is kind of an industry way that we talk about it, and draw your battery down overnight, create all kinds of crazy stuff. That was a class I was really looking forward to, because some of those parasitic or battery draining events are some of the most difficult things to diagnose. And that's one of the things I see where they come in, they've got a new battery in it, which is fine. With the exception, these new batteries are absolutely terrible. They are, skimping costs, everywhere that they possibly can. And one of the biggest things they're doing is they're taking some of the extra robust material out of these batteries, jacking the price up like crazy. I buy batteries too. I'm amazed of how much the last 5 to 8 years automotive batteries have gone up crazy. The problem is when you go and you buy a battery and you don't have that parasitic draw taken care of, then you run that new battery down and you have taken many months, if not years, off the end of that battery's life. So being able to diagnose that a little bit better, and B, maybe prevent some heartache, is a really good thing. So we spent the morning there. Then we went to a workshop on shop management. That was a very good one as well. It was kind of run through your numbers and make sure that you're doing best practices. So I really enjoyed that Saturday afternoon. And then I went to a daily diagnostics with HP tuners, which is a new, it's not new, but it's new to me, diagnostic and tuning software, not like race car tuning, but there's times that when the manufacturer maybe doesn't have the transmission calibration correctly. I just recently went through a Dodge or Stellantis, however you want to put it, a Dodge transmission for a gentleman, and I was able to ramp the line pressure up to maybe prevent him from having early transmission failure. So that was really the last 4 days. So I got home about maybe 4, 5, 6 o'clock last night. It's Monday morning now. I'm kind of sharing Monday afternoon now. I'm sharing my afternoon with you. We're getting basically our podcasting room put together here so I can start sharing what current events are in the automotive space. So if you're interested in that, if you have questions, thoughts, and things you want me to talk about, I absolutely will. A lot of my topics of discussion, such as today, is things that went on last week, things I see in the shop, things I see where I have the same discussion with multiple customers. And basically, we're trying to put some awareness out that will help you in this really crazy automotive field that we all find ourselves in. I personally drive, I have multiple vehicles. I have kind of a large family. And I want to talk about that for a minute because this ongoing training is the reason that I can drive and maintain the vehicles that I have. So I'll just give you a brief rundown of some of my personal vehicles, the mileage that's on them, and some of my thoughts behind it, and really some of the fruits of the training that I've talked about here today. My service truck, which is a 2012 K3500 single rear wheel 6-liter Chevy pickup. It has a utility body, so if you don't know what that means, think of your, plumber's truck with all the boxes on the sides. Maybe your electric utility shows up and they've got all the boxes on the sides. That's what I drive because we have multiple shops that I run between. So that one has right at 250,000 miles. I think I'm a little over 250,000. I have had to put a transmission in it, obviously some tires and some brake work. But other than that, that thing is absolutely reliable and religious for me, and I depend on it every day, probably like a lot of you out there who either have a work truck or maybe work or manage a fleet. So that's really where my mindset comes from, is the fleet management side of things. And that vehicle is not necessarily just a vehicle that when you decide it's disposable, you get rid of it. It's truly a piece of equipment. And a lot of people talk about buying a new vehicle and it depreciating and you losing so much money on it. What I kind of think about is the adverse side of that is how many miles can I get out of this dependably without breaking the bank, and how many years of service can I get out of this? So that 2012, obviously, in 22 was 10 years old. I see a lot of fleets out there that those vehicles have had multiple engines, multiple transmissions, and by the time they crest that 190 to 220, they're so terribly taken care of that there's no value there. They're complete garbage and junk. And that's this truck. There's probably another video here on the channel. It's absolutely dependable. I literally drive it each week, probably round trips of 6 hours, so 3 hours down, 3 hours back, without worry at all. And it's loaded and pulls a trailer sometimes. There's a lot of you out there with 150,000 miles that you wouldn't even think about doing that with your vehicle. Now, the difference is it's been very well taken care of. That doesn't mean that I put $1 million in this thing. Obviously, I put a transmission in it. I'm getting ready to do some tuning that I learned while I was up at Vision, and see if I can't maybe make the engineered flaw, engineered flaw last a little bit longer. Maybe protect this transmission, because I don't know about any of you out there. If you bought a transmission lately, you probably know they're not getting any cheaper. My wife drives a '08 Lincoln Navigator with a 5.43 valve Ford engine in it. Anybody that knows those terms, 5.43 valve, thinks it's probably the biggest piece of junk ever. If you've got a 5.43 valve out there and you want to get some mileage out of it, I know those things very intimately. And she's probably about 220,000 on that one. Original transmission, original engine. I have gone through and did timing chains, oil pump replacement when we first bought it. It actually had some problems when we first bought it, and I was able to put it all together, did some significant front end work. That's been, I don't know, probably a couple of years ago now. And really since then, all we've done is drive it. So no payment on either one of these vehicles, obviously, well north of 200,000. And we actually use that for commuting back and forth to the children's hospital. We have a small child who we take a lot of extra care because of some of her medical challenges, and she's doing extremely well, and she's beat a tremendous amount of the odds. If you have questions about that, I can elaborate into that at some point in time, but she's doing very well. So my wife drives a 200,000+ mile vehicle. We take it multiple hours away. Last year we took our vacation down to Florida. That thing hummed all the way down there and all the way back. Did us very, very well. The one thing that happened to it lately is during this really bad cold snap we had, it did take the battery out. I'm sure I'm not the only one out there. I bet there was a bunch of them out there. It was a EverStart battery that was in there when we bought it. I had contemplating changing it, but as expensive as batteries are, I wanted as much mileage out of it as possible. Thankfully, it gave us fits at home. I swapped it out in a few minutes, and we went on about our day. Now, my kind of personal runaround truck, I actually have two of them, not because I just got vehicles for days. I do have a lot of vehicles. You can look that up on the channel as well. I do a lot of towing, and when I say a lot of towing, probably more than the next 25 people you know. I do a tremendous amount of towing. So it is a 16 Duramax dually four-wheel drive. It's got about 120,000 miles on it. Been a very good truck for me. I've had it probably maybe 4 years now at this point in time. Done quite a bit of maintenance. About the only thing I've had to do as far as repair-wise is I ran into a death wobble situation, which if you don't know what that means, if you drive a Dodge or a straight axle Ford, you probably know what this means. But for anybody that doesn't, you'll hit a bump and the front wheels will start to violently shake. And I mean violently. I'm not making enough of a deal out of it. And the steering wheel gets to going crazy. You cannot drive out of it, which basically means I can't give it gas and try and drive through it. It gets even worse. Basically, you have to slow down to a manageable speed, if not stop, to clear that death wobble up. Otherwise, it keeps doing it, and eventually something's going to break. You won't drive it that long. You'll quit. But it's pretty uncommon on Chevys with independent front suspension. The interesting thing about the 2016 is that was the first year without a steering dampener, which I think was a big mistake with Chevy. And basically you have your shocks that hold the front tires, and kind of move or dampen the front end as it hits bumps. And then you have a steering dampener that runs this way and dampens the steering left to right. Thankfully, Kryptonite is a company, and so I ordered a bracket. They made a conversion kit. I figured out that that's what was wrong with it. I added that to the front differential. The hole for the steering gear was actually in the drag link if you run into this out there. And I was able to install it in probably about an hour or so. It wasn't a difficult deal. Like I said, I went with a Bilstein steering dampener on there, took care of it. I did put 2 new tires on it because they had started to cup a little bit because of this situation. Pardon me. So that's one of my personal vehicles. And then my other personal vehicle that I'm teaching my 16-year-old son to drive in is an '07 F-150. And I took it actually to Kansas City and back. Did me a very good job. I have done some extensive work to it, but it's got 880 some miles on it. Now, again, anybody that knows the 5.43 valve or has owned one knows that if you don't have the right maintenance or mechanic that's taking care of things, it can get expensive and you will not get 300,000 miles out of it. This truck I actually bought with a problem. I do that quite often. And then I try and re-engineer, if you will, the engineered failure that unfortunately Ford did on these 543 valves. So they have a lot of timing chain issues. They have a lot of spark plug issues. Actually, I have a lot of oil pump issues that get misdiagnosed, or they don't get into the shop and get taken care of before catastrophic failure occurs. And unfortunately, that's kind of what happened with this truck. So it had, I think, maybe, forgive me, I've owned it for quite a few years now, maybe 200,000, let's call it. So I put 110,000 on it. And it had cam and roller follower problems, and so it was missing when I bought it. Now, because I was building this for me, maybe I went a little bit far. They're notorious for broken exhaust manifold bolts. I fixed hundreds, if not thousands of those over the last 20 years of working on cars. And so I pulled the cab up on it. If I ever figure out how to attach that to a video, I will. I do have some photos of it. I put 2 new camshafts in it. I upgraded the oil pump, new Ford, everything in the timing components, chain, guides, etc. Ford spark plugs, full set of 8 coils. I put new manifolds on it with new studs, extracted the broken studs, and got it all fixed up. It runs absolutely beautifully. I think you can find a couple of videos of me documenting this here on the channel as well. So I did that about 5 years ago. I did drive it for about 1,000 miles, and lo and behold, the transmission gave me problems, which was not something that I really was looking forward to or expecting, because it had been working flawlessly. I mean, it happened just very quickly all at once. So I thankfully was leaving my house. I drove back to the house, put it in the shop. I got a transmission. I put a transmission in it about 5 years ago, and we've done loyal maintenance to it from that point forward. So obviously, oil's been changed religiously. Coolant's been serviced. It's probably due to be serviced again now that I think about it. Power steering, brake fluid. I have done probably 2 brake jobs on it in the last 5 years, front and rear, probably the rear twice for sure, and the front one will be coming up here shortly. And then we did have to put a set of bearings in the rear end and service the rear differential. So I share all of that story with you to talk about the fact that if you take care of your vehicles, whether you do it, whether you have a shop that's taking care of it and doing a very good job, or maybe you're the one that bounces from shop to shop or drives it until you hear a bad noise or a service light comes on, every time that that happens, or you push that service interval out farther than it's supposed to be, really you may not see it right then. And arguably you probably won't unless you go really, really far. That is when you're taking that life off the backside of that vehicle. So it may not break today, but instead of getting 200,000 out of your vehicle, maybe you only get 120 out of it. Or instead of getting 250 or 300 out of it, maybe you only get 175 out of it. And in my mind, that's why I continue my education, because I need to continue figuring out how to get our customers here at A1 Custom as many miles out of a very expensive vehicle as they possibly can get. And 2, I know what it's like to be stuck on the side of the road or need to be somewhere and your vehicle not start or not do what it's supposed to, that you can dependably take it on a trip. Now, for me, from here to Kansas City and back, it's a little over 3 hours to where we went. We actually went to Overland Park, Kansas. That's where Vision is held pretty much every year. If you're a technician out there and you don't know about Vision, you should really look into it. Even if you're not a technician, pardon me, you probably should look into it too, because any of your facilities that you're taking your vehicle to need to have ongoing training. And that's really one of the biggest reasons why I've stayed at A1 Custom for so many years, was because of the ongoing training. And the fruits of that training and that knowledge I bring to work every single day, and you see it in the amount of miles that we can get out of our vehicles. And it's not just my vehicles. The customers that I built those relationships with, or one of our other technicians, service advisors, or store managers, it's awesome to see them drive the vehicle, and maybe they do trade up, or maybe they trade vehicles at some point in time. A, their vehicle that they have now has served them more years than they would have otherwise. B, it's still worth something when they trade it in, or maybe they pass it down to another family member. And C, one of the most important things is I don't want to be put in a position, so I don't want you all out there to either, to have your vehicle give up when you're not planning on it, and then you're backed into a corner scurrying trying to find a replacement. When you're buying a vehicle, one of the most important things is that you need to be patient, and either you need to be able to look over it at a high level, or you need to get a pre-purchase inspection done. I can't tell you how many terrible vehicles I'll see people go through, and they finally find a good one, and they get many years of service out of it. As I see, people will get desperate. They'll run out and buy a vehicle. It's an absolute lemon, and they get super taken advantage of, and they spend twice as much as they should have on a vehicle that they hate. So that's kind of what the ongoing training for A1 Custom. I felt like it was important to put my money where my mouth is, as far as, hey, what happens when we do take care of our vehicle, and what happens when we don't, as well as I live and breathe this every single day. I wanted to be an auto mechanic as a kid. I've made that happen. And even after 20 years, I still love what I'm doing for a living, and I still continue to get better and better and better. So I hope you're in an industry like that. I hope you're either providing that service to somebody, or you're working on that. And I hope that you don't hate your job or the career field that you're in. So this is some of my thoughts. I want to share this, if not weekly, maybe a couple times a week, but I'm going to shoot for weekly for right now. If you have any questions or thoughts, please leave it down in the comments. If you like what you see, go ahead and give me a like, and maybe think about subscribing to the channel. I hope this helps somebody out there. Thank you all for sticking around with me.